Welcome to episode 1 of season 2 of the Value Adds Value podcast. Thanks for checking in. I'm Kyle Krieger with my guy. We'll give you all the third. Will, what's good?
What up, what up, what up, man? Excited.
Yeah, man, for sure. It is Labor Day weekend, the Sunday of Labor Day weekend when this is dropping, and we
Yeah.
are super thrilled to be bringing you the second season of the Value Adds Value podcast. We are going to make each progressive school year a new season, which is 52 episodes each school year. So we are super thrilled to be coming back to you. A ton of really good collaborations this year, some new relationships and partnerships that we have. So we're super excited. So we thought it'd only be fitting to talk about back to school since, well, where you live, people are already back to school. Where I live, people are just about to go back to school here on Tuesday. So
Yeah. I mean, I've really already been back. I mean, there are no kids, but I've been at the campus already, kind of doing my thing and
mhm.
trying to get set up. Had to leave myself a little bit of work to do for when we actually get back and get time in our rooms. But man, I feel like a first year teacher, man. Like I feel like I'm just giddy and ready to go. And I had one of my coworkers. I get to work with a former skills specialist of mine who, former skills specialist that I used to work with uh, as you know when we were both skills, and now she's coming back to the classroom and teach sixth grade mathematics with me at my campus, and I'm just excited, man. The direction that our campus is going, and the move that this it's like they talk about in the book, great, from good to great. You got to kind of get the pieces that's there and get the right pieces, and then kind of move those pieces around until you find the right place for those right pieces. And I feel like we're year two of our campus, and we're moving in that direction, man. So I'm really excited about that right
Yeah, it's so funny you mentioned the book Good to Great by Jim Collins. I was working yesterday and I listened to 2 hours of a podcast between him and Tim Ferriss, and it's one of the best podcasts I've ever listened
now.
to. So I was just thinking you and I need to work on our flywheel principle, figure out what that is, but we don't want to get too deep in the weeds because we want to make sure that our listeners and ourselves, because this podcast is for ourselves too, are starting out the school year the right way. Because we know that if you don't start the school year off the right way, you're going to have some hard drudgery at some point. So starting out with this, let's here's the four things we really wrote down as in terms of what we want to talk about on this podcast. We want to talk about being intentional. We want to have a vision and a definition for success. In that we have goal setting, and then an important piece that's kind of tangential to that is parent communication, because it's something that I know I've struggled with, um,
Me
and
too.
it is one of those things that I don't want to say it's unpleasant, but it's um, we're hoping it doesn't have to be unpleasant. We're hoping to speak to you a little bit so it doesn't have to be an unpleasant part of that job. So, um, where you want to start on
Well,
this?
we'll jump right in with. I mean, I think that lead in kind of takes us straight to the point of intentionality, um, because I think that is the paramount principle that we have to get is that I mean, it's important every single day to be intentional, to wake up with an intentional goal, to wake up with I often tell people you should do visualization when you first wake up before you even get out of the bed. Just kind of sit there and just become aware of what your day is going to bring. I like to say it's kind of taking a bird's eye preview of what's going on, and to know that we're all starting a brand new school year with brand new students. I think it's so critical that we become intentional about what we're doing, and I mean not so much what we're doing, why we're here. I
Mm,
think that's where
mm,
intentionality starts at. Why? The conversation my wife and I've had all summer long is simply why. Why do you teach? Why did we choose this profession? Why did we choose to As some people like to say, why do we choose to be overworked, underpaid, and underappreciated?
Right.
Why would you subject yourself to that type of punishment? But most of us, most teachers have this innate calling to help. And in that innate calling, it makes it kind of our responsibility to not just have it be a calling, but actually make it a profession, a true
Hmm.
vocation, and
Hmm.
intentionality and understanding why you're doing it. What's the purpose of you being here? What do not to try to jump ahead to goal setting, but what's your desired outcome?
Hmm.
And I think that, like for me, I looked at this year and I said, I want to be intentional with every single kid that I meet, not just my students, with every kid. Because I come in contact with so many kids during duty times, morning transitions and afternoon transitions, and I want to go back to last year. I started the year with a little small notebook, and I would write kids' names down, and I would tell them to give me something to remember you about, and I would write down their name and something to remember them about and keep it. And I found that little book today, cleaning out of my room, and I only got to like 2 pages, and I'm like, we had over 1,400 students on our campus. Why did I stop that? It's helping me understand and know. But I think that establishing that why gives you a reason to wake up in the
It reminds me, when you talk about that, it reminds me of that thing you'll say to a kid who winds up in the principal's office or wherever. When you woke up, did you say to yourself, my vision for today is I'm going to wind up in the principal's office, I'm going to get suspended, I'm going to do this. And I think, you know most teachers are on fire right now. They've had the summer, they've had the time to prep, they're ahead. They've got a few weeks or a month or whatever planned and prepped. So, hopefully things start out smooth, and they kind of get, I know I've done it, where you get into that comfort zone where you're kind of lulled and you lose sight of that why, that purpose.
morning.
And I think there's nothing more powerful, and we've talked about this, for your intentionality, for setting an intention for the day, and at the end of the day, looking at how you did working toward that intention.
Hmm.
And I think intention without reflection is kind of pointless,
Oh, absolutely.
because if you're not reflecting on how you did in working towards that intention, why are you setting it? And
But
it's,
that's your assessment. That's your
yeah.
assessment tool. Like that reflection is your way of assessing your accomplishment of what you set out for that day to be.
Hmm.
Like I say, first bit in the morning, you should say, visualize and set your intentions. The very last thing you should do at the end of the day, reflect on it. Did I meet that? Did my day give me that? And if it didn't, what happened? And I think a lot of times we overthink things, or we try to, I heard somebody say the other day, oh, I don't have time for that. Because we were talking about meditation, and I said, just waking up 10 minutes earlier and just finding a quiet place to just sit down and not go back to sleep, not take a little cat nap, but to really become in tune with who you are, and waiting on the weather to get a little bit better. It's still 85 degrees out here in the morning. So, uh,
Yeah.
but once the temperature cools down a little bit, taking my mat outside and getting in the backyard, and, becoming one with my surroundings so that I can kind of meditate. And they're like, I don't have time for that. I say, but you take a shower every morning or every night to wipe off the day's, dirt, and the day's what you've done throughout the day. I say, in meditation is spiritually like a shower. It's a shower for your spirit. Not trying to get religious at all, because I don't think it can become a religious experience if you are a religious person, or it could be a clearing and clarifying, experience for someone who may say, religion is not really my thing, doesn't really do all that. But taking time just to listen to that still voice inside of you that drives your why. And if you're not in tune with that, it's going to be very difficult to get students to in tune with their own.
Mm,
It's
yeah.
going to be very difficult.
You know what? And other thing I like about, reflecting at the end of the day is you can set your intention for the next day. And that's sometimes what I find to be the most beneficial is to, take a little note card and write down the things that happened today or whatever, and then at least get myself a direction of where I want to go, for the next day. I mean, we write detailed list of the things we've got to do during the day. We write checklists, but it's not any more difficult, like you said, to be able to write down, this is my intention for the day. This is how I want to behave in this particular situation. This is who I want to be as a teacher and as a person.
Right. And that's, I think, it has to boil down to that. What do I want to, what do I have to become? Remember, that was a discussion we had before. What do I have to become for my students to be successful? And making sure that every day I intentionally become that. You know, I am a religious person. I am, and the Bible tells us, Paul said, I become all things for all people that I might reach one. And some people say, well, that's kind of crazy and schizophrenic. No, it's just saying that I'm going to put myself in a position to where I can try to be of service to every single person I meet, because I don't know the person I'm serving may not need everything that I have, but may just need that 1%, may just need that 10% of what I give that day. And if I don't give that, then that little bit that they would have needed leaves them leaving my presence incomplete. And I mean, that's the worst thing, that we deal with, is just being incomplete and deficient in so many areas. And the one way that we can really start getting those small victories is with waking up and being intentional, understanding, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Especially when you get around November, December, January, this is, talking about back to school. I tell people, work your hardest through October, get to November. And by the time you get to November, December will be smooth, January will be rough, then February, March, and April will be the smoothest days of your teaching career, if you focus on why you're doing it and you keep those intentions in front of yourself and in front of your students.
So, how then do you, out of your intention as a teacher, define success? Because I think when we're talking about defining success, we're not necessarily talking about just the academic standards and the content and those things you need to check off, but more broadly defining success or having a vision for success for your classroom and your kids.
Um, this whole summer I've been listening to Earl Nightingale, and I think he gave the best definition, that success is the pursuit of a worthy purpose or goal. Um, the pursuit of a worthy purpose of a goal, an intentional pursuit of a worthy purpose or a goal. The fact that you put a goal there automatically makes it intentional, because a goal says, I've thought about something, I've set some measures in place, and I'm going to try to accomplish it. So the fact that to say that I want to be successful, then it's a matter of getting yourself and your students to be intentional about the pursuit of a worthwhile goal. What is it that you want to accomplish? What is it? What do you want to get out of this math class this year? And if you're every single day you walk into a classroom, you're pursuing that goal. I joked with my principal and said, "Hey, I want to make the Teacher Hall of Fame. I want my jersey hoisted up in the rafters of the hollow halls of teaching, and that's my worthwhile goal. So every single day, every single morning that I get up, my focus is on, that's my metric. That's my metric. That's what I'm measuring against. So when I'm defining success, even though I may go into the classroom and bomb a lesson, it gives me an opportunity to recover from that bomb and to grow from that recovery and to learn a whole lot in that process. So even though in most people's eyes say, "Oh, you didn't make this point. You had this many kids fail." All last year, I had kids failing, 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 and everybody was like, "Oh my God!" I say, "I'm not stressed about this right now because I know that my kids are pursuing a worthwhile goal." But at the end of the day, if we don't have that in place, if we don't have that definition of success, to where we can actually talk to kids about success. I mean, we want kids to be success, and success can't just be a test. It can't just be an assessment at the end of a unit that you learn. Success has to be something that they grow into, because when they start to learn to create intentionally create environments where they can make themselves successful, and they start to taste that success, the repeatability factor jumps in there, and success is just like sugar. Once you get that sugar in you, your body starts craving it more and more and more and more and more, to a point to where in some cases too much is not even enough for some people. Success is that exact same way. It's contagious, it's an infectious, and if you are doing it the correct way and engaging students in that process of being success based on a clear definition, again, take test scores out of the window. A kid may just say, "Hey, I just want to be a better person at the end of the year." Okay, well, define what do you mean by better. I don't want to blow up at people. One of my students last year said, "I have anger issues, and every class I have 3 or 4 episodes where I just go off and da 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 da." I said, "So our goal is to reduce 3 or 4 to at least one a day." And I'm not just talking about once in my class. I'm talking about one a day. I said, "Because you don't have to worry about being that way in my classroom, because I understand you. So when you feel that, give me a look, give me a sign, exit stage left, get yourself together. I don't like people telling me to calm down. I won't tell you to calm down. You measure your own self." And I think in the beginning of the year, we had that conversation, and he started getting up, walking out, coming back in. Nobody else understood what was going on, but then it got to the point where he wouldn't even walk out anymore. Other teachers started reporting, he hadn't blown up in my classroom. So his goal was one a day. He went a stretch where it was none a day. Because again, give them a taste of what is it like. If you can be successful here, transfer that to another classroom. You transfer it to that one, then transfer it to another one. So now you're not just setting goals based on your classroom experiences and the teacher that's there. You're setting goals based on things that you know within your own power you can do and accomplish.
Right. And I love what you said. And we don't want to, it's difficult. I mean, it's one of the biggest challenges we have is helping kids define success differently than just scores and grades, because it's a system that's kind of ingrained by those scores and those grades. But just because it's difficult and it takes more work and more intentionality doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing it. It's one of those things. And it reminds me, we talk about helping kids be their own best advocate. That's one of those things that really helps kids become advocates for themselves when they start to feel like I'm in charge of my own success.
Hmm. I'm
And
in charge of my own success.
the only way you can be in charge of your own success is if you're defining for yourself what success means.
Hmm.
And granted, it may look way different in a elementary school than it will in a high school, but those young kids, they know themselves. They know what to do. They can set goals for themselves and they can work to achieve them. So you can't ever undermine your kids in their ability to do things like that.
Right. But again, defining for them success is just that's the basement level. Having them taste and experience success. I like to use the word taste because I'm a baker, and when you're baking, it's like while the cake is cooking, you smell the aroma, and you start to smell the combining and the fusions of the different ingredients you've thrown in, that it makes you want to taste it. Like it's hard to sit here and bake a sweet potato pie or a pecan pie or a pecan sweet potato pie and smell the caramelization of the pecans and the brown sugar and the sweet potatoes, and not want to taste it. But if I take that same pie and I burned it every single time I cooked it, the aroma will become so stank in that environment that I don't ever get to taste the fruits of my labor, because instead of me tasting it, I'm throwing it out. Instead of tasting it from my experience, I'm discarding it. So as educators, we have to focus on how do we make a sweet flavor of an experience of learning that our kids want to take success. They want to get engaged with the learning. They want to set those goals and meet it. And if you don't give them a clear the definition, like I say, the intentionality leads to you saying, I'm going to do something this way. When I know that this is my intent, this is how I'm going to do it.
I apologize that we have to take this short break from this episode of the Value Adds Value podcast, but we have news that's so important we just couldn't wait to tell you. Because we believe in it, and because they believe in us, we were able to partner with Nearpod to provide you a free opportunity and discounts on your chance to use the Nearpod platform. Now, what is Nearpod? Glad you asked. Nearpod is an online teaching platform that we can house our lessons, we can create presentations, and they have the most incredible bank of pre-created lessons and curriculum that is there for you to sample depending upon what level you choose. So if you go to the link that's in our show notes, I'm going to give it to you right now. It's go.nearpod.com/value adds value. That's go.nearpod.com/value adds value. You have the opportunity to sign up for free, plus get huge discounts on their gold and their platinum memberships. And for a few lucky listeners soon, we're going to be giving away gold memberships and one platinum. So keep listening, and we'll let you know when that's going to happen. But before that is, go to go.nearpod.com/value adds value to check it out.
This is why I do something. Now I figure out what I'm going to do. What am I going to do? Being successful, you could be so much successful in so many different areas. You know, if you're a teacher and you're a great teacher, but you don't want to be teaching, you could literally live your entire existence in your career and never be a success, because in your mind you're not doing what you want to do. So you're angry every day you get home. You're frustrated because you want to be doing something else, even though what you're doing you're good at. Even though what you're doing you're good at, and you say, "Well, I just wish I could do something else." Then go do something else. Go do something else. Well, this is all I can do for right now. Then don't complain about what you're doing right now. Just do it. You know what I mean? And set those clear expectations of what it is that you want to do. And I just, like I say, we have to get students thinking about what is success, giving them a clear definition. Because I guarantee you, most of our students don't know what success is. They think to them success is passing to the next grade. They think success is making sure I get acceptable or meets expectations on a state assessment. But that's not success. Success is I didn't used to be able to sit in the classroom and listen to a teacher talk and work cooperatively with my group. This year I was able to do that. That's success.
And what influence do you think what they see as success outside of school has on their views of success inside school?
I don't think I think the kids see the end. They see the end products in so many people.
Right.
Social media and not just social media, media in general. It gives you this reality that everything's perfect, and that they don't. It very rarely shows the work behind it. It was interesting. I was watching a special the other night on Netflix about Africa, and they showed the hunt. These lionesses hunting, and as they were hunting, they were chasing down this wildebeest to the point to where the four that were chasing them literally had to stop once they caught it and killed it, and they couldn't even eat yet because they were exhausted from the chase. So they literally laid there with their paws over their portion, breathing heavy, while other lions came and took their field from the other areas, and those lionesses sat there and held their spot, and then they ate once they were calm. And I say, wow, we're so used to chase reward, chase reward that we forget that sometimes in the chase you have to wait a while. If I'm harvesting wheat, I just can't automatically go out there and get it. I got to let that sit a while. Got to let it dry out, separate the wheat from the chaff. You know what I'm saying? So, in order for kids to do that, we have to make sure again that experience that they get in the classroom is one that shows them what success tastes like. Not, oh, you're successful, everybody gets a trophy. No, you got all. I love Rita Pearson's example when she said the kid came back and said, "Well, I got a 2 or something on there." She's telling me that means you got 2 right. You didn't get them all wrong, so you're not all bad. And it's just next time we'll try to get 4 right. Next time we'll try to get 5 right. And once they start seeing, I moved from 2 to 3, from 3 to 6, to where now I may only get to 50% mastery, but guess what? Within myself, I'm a success because when I look back, I'm not where I was.
Hmm.
But that only comes from setting up an environment that's focused on effort and engaging students in a worthy pursuit of success.
Right. And we could talk about setting smart goals and doing all those kinds of things, but y'all can find that out there. But the last thing I would kind of add to the goal setting piece is just making sure that kids have it. But I mean, I do think it's important to write it down. We've talked about this at length between the two of us
Uh-huh.
and the work that we do. When we set goals and we write them down and we stay focused on them, we crush it.
Hmm.
When we get lackadaisical, when we lose focus, when we stop having those dialogues and writing things down, we lose focus. And this summer has been amazing for the two of us because we've talked, an hour or two a day, a day, 3 to 4 days a week, the entire summer, every morning. Like we've been on the horn for almost an hour, and it's 6:21 in the morning. Because we found that that was the time that worked best for us to communicate, and it really is our power time. We both feel like that's our time of day to really get after it, is right away in the morning. So just make sure that you are giving kids a space and a place to write down, manage, keep track of the things that they are doing, so they have a chance to look back and say, "This is where I've come from." Because
Right.
I think that's what I struggle with as a person, is having that vision to be able to look back and see, wow, I've really come this far. I think sometimes I lose focus on how far I've come.
Because if you don't see it, if you're not constantly revisiting it, if that doesn't become part of your vision, then it, you'll never know. And then everything becomes happenstance. I say, I marvel at some teachers when I watch them teach, and I'm like, man, it's like, how did you do da 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 da? I don't know. It just comes natural. No, no. If you're not understanding how it is that you're engaging students and able to articulate it, then I question I question teachers on that fact that how can you say it just happened? We know the magic happens in the classroom a lot, but even when the magic happens, there should be a sense of reflection that happens that says, what made that go that way? And when I know what made it go that way, then I can then repeat that.
Hmm.
And it gives me a greater chance to have more of those magic moments. Instead of being at the mercy of the sea, you use those as your oars to kind of guide you and direct you in the way that you're going. So you're just not out there just always saying, oh, the wind blew my way, so I ended up where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, it's so funny that we were talking about Jim Collins earlier, and he has this system that he's been using for decades, where at the end of every day he writes down, on a scale from -2 to 2, emotionally what kind of day he has. So at the end of the day, he writes down, today was a -2 day. This day was a +2, a 0, a 1. And what he tried to do from there was he figured out the things that were happening and the things that he was doing on the +2 days, and he did more of those.
Hmm.
And he figured out the things that were happening on the -2 days, and he did less of those.
Hmm.
And he took something that's not necessarily quantifiable, like the emotional joy or your emotions on a particular day, but he found a way to quantify it in a way that helped him have more of the +2 days than the -2 days.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of teachers now doing things like that. I know my wife went back to Aldine, and she's teaching in one of their model classrooms, model schools that they're using for their schools of the future. And the big component there is social emotional learning for students, and kind of using a metric of asking kids, "Where are you today? Here's your thing. I don't You don't put your name on it. Just stick it up here on this thing and on this thermometer and tell me where are you today? Emotionally." And then you kind of get a gauge of where your class is, and you can kind of start picking out kids to have a conversation with. Actually, they wrote their name on the backside of the sticky note and put the sticky note up so that only the teacher was able to see who the student name, whose name was on the paper, to know who I needed to address.
Mm,
And I was like, oh man, that's so amazing. It's almost like an anonymous, no one in the classroom knows but me and that student.
mhm,
The next day or maybe later that day, I can say, hey, I'm gonna go have lunch with Kyle because he said that he was feeling kind of lonely and no one's talking to him at home. So it made me giving up my lunch to go have lunch with Kyle, and that could be the difference in Kyle's day.
right.
You know, so
Yeah,
yeah, but
man.
I think having that clear definition of what success is, and I challenge every teacher. If you don't have a definition to success, think about it long and hard and create your own definition of what you think. What is success in your eyes? What is it that you want your students to achieve when you say that they're being successful? You know, and then making sure once you do that with your students, make sure that your students do it and they kind of revisit that over and over and over again to make sure that they're actually able to uh, to make sure that they can have those tasteful moments of success.
Mhm. Alright, so to wrap this thing up, let's talk a little bit about parent communication because it's one of those things that I think most teachers could improve on, both of us included. So, what is your vision or your goal for parent communication for this coming school year?
Early and often, early and often. Uh, before the school year starts, before I meet my students, I want to meet my parents. Have a conversation with each one of my parents. Reach out to them, and I think it's important that they know me. Um, last year, I felt like I missed a lot of. I feel like I missed a lot of parents, which means that that's an area of my student that I didn't connect with. Um, and this year, my goal is just simply early and often. Using the platform. I use Class Dojo, using that as my go-to tool to communicate with my parents, to display student work. My survey last year, students said, "Mr. Law, we don't feel like you celebrate us enough individually." So I said, I'm going to do a post onto Class Dojo and have students of the week in each one of my classes, and highlight that student, talk about the things they like, things they don't like, places they want to go, what are their ambitions. Each student of the week will have a thing where they're going to get a chance to talk about who their hero is, and spotlight that student that way. And that way, I think that shows parents that there's a way to use the social platform for students to be uplifted and edified instead of being a derogatory or a negative environment. So, um, parent communication early and often. They have to know your voice for their children can go home and say, "Oh, well, Mr. Law said this." Then if the parent already know me, and I say, "Hey, I'm a little wild." So if the kid come home and say that, I asked him if he bumped his head. I probably did, but know that everything I do is out of love. I want your kids to be successful. And I think when you have those relationships with parents, the kids are not as likely to test you because they know you talk to my mom. And I'm not calling your mom because I had parents that was on my DM when my kids had projects on Instagram saying, "Hey, Mr. Law, I know it's after hours, it's 8 o'clock, but we were having issues with this project that's due Friday. Can you help us out?" And I was like, "Absolutely. I'm here doing homework myself. What can I do for you?" Early and often. Eliminate all excuses for not connecting with those parents, and don't let the quote unquote, we have those good kids. Don't let the good kids that people say that usually go unseen because they are good.
Mm,
Make sure it's every single kid that you make an attempt. Email, phone call. If that doesn't work, reach out to the counselors and say, "Hey, it's 3 weeks in now, and I have not been able to get in touch with this parent. Is there another number that you have that I can get in touch with this parent?" Don't stop until you make contact. And
mm,
like I said, I set a goal at least once a month. Parents should hear from me at least once a month in some kind of way. Email blast, newsletter. They should hear something about what's going on in our classroom and in their child's learning. And like I said, then when you have to have those individual difficult conversations, or you have to have what I'm calling my refocusing meeting. Um, when I call parents up to the school, I don't want you to come up here and be guns blazing. I'm gonna do no, no, no. I need you to come up here to help refocus your student. Your young scholar has already they've kind of gone off track, and I think they need to see that we're on the same page, so that we can all three be on the same page, so that we can start accomplishing and crushing these goals. And
yeah.
so, early and often.
Yeah, and I think the other one I would add to it is, just the kid, like you said, the consistency piece. You have to have the consistency piece, and I think for me, making myself available, and giving parents several, like you said, several options to communicate with me. Um, because the thing that always got in my way, I always told myself that the language barrier was what got in the way, that I wasn't communicating because when I started in Houston, the majority of my
Mm,
parents were, you know, um, English was not their first language, and a lot of them didn't speak English at all. But there's always ways that you can make yourself available. You can communicate, um, and like you said, the more you can, and for me, the more you can let that parent get to know you, and when you have that moment, if a kid goes home and says this or that happened, and the parent's like, I know Mr. K, and I know Mr. Law, and that doesn't sound like something that they would do,
mhm.
versus having the parent, like you said, the parent comes up guns blazing.
But even if you think about it, most of our parents, there's a misconception, and I hear it a lot amongst teachers that say parents just don't care.
Not true.
Not true at all. The problem is parents don't know, teacher, that you care. Teaching has been portrayed in so many arenas as, oh, they're just here to have their summers off. Oh, you have a handful that care about kids, but most of them just there for a check. Well, burst that bubble. Check's not that great. It's good. I mean, again, I can't say that I'm not living in a poorhouse, but at the same time, most teachers have the skill set that could put them in a six-figure income easily. Um, matter of fact, when we say it all the time, we prepare the six-figure income student. So if we were to apply it, we could do it. Most of us are in the profession because this is what we love to do, and we need to make sure our parents know that.
Hmm.
Our parents need to know that I care. My opening thing last year, I was honest with my parents. Look, this is my first year back in the classroom. I'm gonna bump my head a couple of times. I'm gonna slip and fall. Just trust that I'm not gonna allow your kids to fall through the crack. I'm going to hold up, but just understand that if your kids come home and say, "Hey, class is kind of crazy today," or class is kind of this, understand the concept of what I'm doing. I think I tried everything I could possibly think of last year within the first semester. And I told my kids, this is a science experiment, so you just never know what you're going to get. You may have four kids in a group. You may come in the next day, may have 8 kids in a group. And when you do that, not only do you keep the students on their heel, but you learn what's going to work for me and what's not going to work for me. What can I do better on? How can I do this differently? Again, now I think my hybrid model of paperwork, rote memorization, and technology. I like the 50-50 split.
Hmm.
I like putting that responsibility on digital citizenship on kids and holding them accountable for what they do and say online, by teaching them the different character points of being online. But again, parents are not, they care. I'm a parent and I care, but I care so much about my kid that I want to know how much do their teachers care? Not about just teaching, but about each individual student. Listening to my daughter give a critique of all her teachers, and she'll tell you in a minute, Daddy, such and such teacher was good, was a great teacher, but I just didn't feel a human to human connection. That's a now 8th grade teenager. Help me, Lord. That's a teenager talk. I didn't feel the individual human to human connection between myself and that teacher. Number one, it speaks volumes that she was able to articulate that. Number two, it speaks volumes on that information needed to be shared with that teacher so that that teacher can understand that if you're already here teaching at a 10, you would surpass that simply by connecting with every student.
Yeah.
Every student, every kid is worth it.
Hmm.
Every kid is worth it. Some of them a little harder to crack open to get to, but if you keep churning and keep going, eventually it'll be like butter, baby. It's like butter.
They're the pistachio or the walnut versus the peanut.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as we wrap this up, man, we're super thrilled you chose to join us for episode 1 of season 2 of Value Adds Value. A couple real quick things that you could do to support us or join our community. You could subscribe to this podcast, share it, like it, write a review. But if you're interested in doing professional development with us on your own terms, you can check us out at patreon.com/value adds value. Will, anywhere else they can follow you?
Uh, just follow value as value. I want to just correct you real quick. I don't want you. If you could do it, you should do it. Go follow us. Go subscribe. Hit the like button. Leave a message. Um, and if it's something that you want to hear that we're not touching, that's not, let us know. Email us. Let us know what we could add to what we're doing. Again, our job, first and foremost, is to be servants to our cause. And our cause is educating and making sure that every kid gets that teacher. So, again, if it's something that we're not bringing, or you say, hey, this would be a great topic, or even, hey, this will be a great person to bring onto your podcast, hit us up. Send us a message, man. Like I say, our goal is to interview as many of the wonderful minds that are out here in education that are doing it so that everybody can glean and learn from it. So, like, subscribe, go to Patreon. Again, PDN on your own terms is huge. We've worked all summer to really put something together that we feel is going to be revolutionary for teachers to be able to get these PD hours and to have that, not have that excuse of I don't have time,
Right, right. So,
because you can do it on your own time. So,
mhm.
like, subscribe, become a patron, and just go and teach and do your thing.
Awesome. Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode and you join us next week where we'll be talking about classroom culture and classroom management. So, this is it. Thank you for tuning in to episode 1, season 2 of the Value Adds Value podcast.